Our first guest on City Extra today is better known for his appearances in the Monty Python show on television. But in fact, there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. For example, he studied English at Oxford University and is supposed to be quite an expert on medieval history and literature. He wrote a book about Chaucer, which was described as a brilliant work of literary and historical detection. And now he's turned his attention to fairy tales and produced a lovely book of stories with such titles as The Beast with 1,000 Teeth and The Butterfly Who Sang. Here's, of course, Terry Jones. Terry, good afternoon. Welcome to the programme.
Hello.
Are you well?
Welsh, do you say? Or well?
Well, you're both,
yes,
aren't you?
I'm very well, yes. Not quite as Welsh as I'd like to be.
But Colwyn Bay, they can hear us in Colwyn Bay.
Yeah, Colwyn Bay, my old hometown, yes. Spent most part of my youth sort of longing to get back to Colwyn Bay. I hear they're going to turn it into a suburb of Liverpool, though, are they? They're going to motorway.
Well, they're always talking about these things.
Yeah, sad.
I must ask you, first of all, why a book of fairy tales? It seems an unusual choice after what you've been doing.
Well, I've always been fascinated by fairy tales, really, and the myths and legends. I like the fantasy. I like the stories like this, for instance, the Narcissus myth, something like that, which you can get a very simple image for quite a complex idea, the idea of falling in love with yourself, and there it is in just an image of somebody seeing his reflection in a pool, and he gets so fascinated by it, he falls in and drowns, And I just like fantasy that can get onto that level and just encapsulate something in an image.
The stories are super, very gentle and imaginative. Where did you get them from?
Oh, yeah, this again. This is a head, this is in between my shoulders, this pimple. I just sat down really and thought, I could have a go at something like that. I was really writing specifically for my daughter, so I wasn't trying to write the world's greatest stories. I just thought, what does Sally like? And I just threw in everything that I knew would grab her attention. She likes witches and dragons and things like that.
How old is she?
Well, she's 7 now. She was about just coming up for 5 when I wrote them.
And I must say, the illustrations, the colour pictures of the dragons and the castles and everything are marvellous. Who did those?
Is Michael Foreman. I have to say, he's one of the foremost children's illustrators today. But listen to this picture here. Yeah, that's 39 in full colour, 45 in black and white. It's quite I think, the illustrations are a key integral part of the book.
Sounds just like an advert.
Ah, well, it is, isn't it? No, I didn't.
Have you severed all connections with Monty Python and co?
No, we're working away at the moment. We're supposed to be doing a film next summer. In fact, don't know what it is, but we're doing a film.
And of course, going back to sort of pre-Monty Python days, talk about Python in just a moment. But I mean, the sort of the forerunner, I suppose, was the programme Do Not Adjust Your Set, which were involved, which Denise Coffey and
yes, David Jason.
That's right.
Well, that was, in fact, really, when you're looking back at it, there was. That was really one of the first grains of Python, because there was myself, Mike Palin, Eric Idle, and in the later shows we even had some cartoons from Terry Gilliam. And that's really, it was that, and then joining up with John Cleese and Graham Chapman, that sort of Python was born.
And when it was born, it was on late at night, and not originally, wasn't it? And not a particularly brilliant...
No, I think it was London only. It was BBC One, but I think it was only the London area. And it used to go out. Once it went on after midnight, I can remember. And if they put the Horse of the Year show on, they'd sort of move Python, wouldn't have it on that week.
What do you think were the ingredients of the enormous success of the programme?
It's difficult to say. I think in a way it's like doing anything. If you do it to satisfy yourself, and you do something, and you're not trying to please a concept of what you think other people want, but you're trying to do something that's you feel is worth doing and real, and then something comes out that works for somebody. It doesn't work for everybody.
And what about some of the locations and some of the scenes you've done? You must have had some pretty good memories of some of the places you went to do them.
We did a lot of it in Bradford, I seem to remember. Glencoe was quite a favourite. We used to go and shoot up there. Sort of Icelandic backgrounds and things. And we also shot quite a bit in Torquay. In fact, actually, we stayed in a hotel there, and that's where John got the Fawlty Towers from, a hotel we were staying in. Actually, Mike and Graham and Terry Gilliam and I only stayed there for 2 nights. I think we had to move out. We couldn't stand it. Wondered why John was staying on, with his notebook and pen.
OK, Terry, thanks very much for coming in this afternoon. Let's return to the book of fairy stories. Perhaps you'd like to pick a short one for us this afternoon. We'll have a story on the programme.
OK.
So find your page.
Oh, wonderful cake horse.
Wonderful cake horse, yes. Are you sitting comfortably?
Well, I'm sitting comfortably.
Are you sitting comfortably at home? Then Terry will begin.
The wonderful cake horse. A man once made a cake shaped like a horse. That night, a shooting star flew over the house, and a spark happened to fall on the cake horse. Well, the cake horse lay there for a few moments. Then it gave a snort. Then it whinnied, scrambled to its legs, and shook its mane of white icing, and stood there in the moonlight, gazing round at the world. The man who was asleep in bed heard the noise and looked out of the window, and saw his cake horse running around the garden, bucking and snorting, just as if it had been a real wild horse. "Hey, cake horse!" cried the man. "What are you doing?" "Aren't I a fine horse?" cried the cake horse. "You can ride me if you like." But the man said, "You've got no horseshoes, and you've got no saddle, and you're only made of cake." The cake horse snorted and bucked and kicked the air and galloped across the garden and leapt clean over the gate and disappeared into the night. The next morning, the cake horse arrived in the nearby town and went to the blacksmith and said, "Blacksmith, make me some good horseshoes, for my feet are only made of cake." But the blacksmith said, "How will you pay me?" And the cake horse answered, "If you make me some horseshoes, I'll be your friend." The blacksmith shook his head. "I don't need friends like that," he said. So the cake horse galloped to the saddler and said, "Saddler, make me a saddle of the best leather, one that'll go with my icing sugar mane." But the saddler said, "If I make you a saddle, how will you pay me?" "I'll be your friend," said the cake horse. "I don't need friends like that," said the saddler, and shook his head. The cake horse snorted and bucked and kicked its legs in the air and said, "Why doesn't anyone want to be my friend? I'll go and join the wild horses." And he galloped out of the town and off to the moors where the wild horses roamed. But when he saw there were other wild horses, they were all so big and wild that he was afraid they'd trample him to crumbs without even noticing he was there. And just then he came upon a mouse who was groaning to himself under a stone. "What's the matter with you?" asked the cake horse. "Oh," said the mouse, "I ran away from my home in the town and came up here where there's nothing to eat, and now I'm dying of hunger and too weak to get back." The cake horse felt very sorry for the mouse, so he said, "Here you are, you can nibble a bit of me if you like, for I'm made of cake." "That's most kind of you," said the mouse, and he ate a little of the cake horse's tail and a little of his icing sugar mane. "Now I feel much better." Then the cake horse said, "If only I had a saddle and some horseshoes, I could carry you back to town." "I'll make them," said the mouse, and he made 4 little horseshoes out of acorn cups and a saddle out of beetle shells, and he got up on the cake horse's back and rode him back to town. And there they remained the best of friends for the rest of their lives.
Just like Listen with Mother, isn't
Oh,
it?
it is, isn't it?
Terry, that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. It's the first time we've had a fairy story read on the programme in the afternoon.
Yes. Is everybody asleep? Hey, come on, wake up. Everyone asleep out there.
Terry, thanks very much for coming in this afternoon. The book is called Terry Jones' Fairy Tales, published by Pavilion and Michael Joseph at £6.95. Thanks very much for coming in. You know who's my favourite character, Mrs. Niggerbater?
Oh, yes. Ah, Mrs. Niggerbater, yes. Oh, dear, best friend's just exploded. Oh, dear.
Terry, it's been lovely meeting you. Thanks very much.
It's a pleasure.